Imagine coming home to find a letter on your kitchen table. The handwriting is unmistakable. It's your own. Inside, a message from your future self warns about a decision you're contemplating right now. A decision that leads to profound regret. But here's the paradox. If you heed this warning and change your path, the letter would never be written. How could it exist at all? This is just the surface of time paradoxes that could unravel the very fabric of our reality. Quantum physicists now admit that time travel isn't merely science fiction. Experiments with particles moving faster than light have opened doors we once thought impossible. In this video, we'll explore 10 levels of time paradoxes, from the familiar grandfather paradox to the butterfly effect, from causal loops to the complete dissolution of reality itself. Each level will challenge everything you understand about time, causality, and personal identity. But the most disturbing possibility isn't these paradoxes. It's that we might be living in an already altered reality. Those strange déjà vu sensations might not just be brain glitches, but signs of disturbances in the timeline. Join me on this journey through 10 levels of time paradoxes that will force you to question everything you believe about time and existence. Are you ready to have your mind irreversibly changed? Tapestry challenges us to embrace the mysteries of life, to hold paradoxical truths without fear, and to recognize that our understanding of reality is always a work in progress. Having traversed these 10 levels of temporal disturbance, from simple paradoxes to the dissolution of reality itself, we might wonder what wisdom we can extract from these thought experiments, what they reveal about our relationship with time, causality, and our place within the cosmic order. As we prepare to explore the final layer of temporal implications, let us delve into the lessons embedded within these paradoxes, reflecting on how they can guide us toward deeper ethical understanding and meaningful engagement with the world around us. Imagine coming home on an ordinary evening to find an unexpected letter waiting on your kitchen table. The handwriting on the envelope is instantly recognizable. It's your own. Inside, you discover a message dated 5 years from now, written by your future self. The letter describes a decision you're contemplating at this very moment, one that seems trivial, but that your future self now recognizes as the first step down a path of profound regret. With specific details that only you could know, your future self implores you to choose differently. As you sit with this impossible letter in your hands, the quiet ticking of a clock suddenly seems louder in the stillness of your room. What would you do? Would you heed this warning from across time, accepting the judgment of your future self as superior to your own present understanding? Or would you defy it, perhaps suspecting that your future self has forgotten something essential about who you are now, about what you value, and why this choice matters to you in this moment? This simple scenario, a message traversing the boundary of time, immediately reveals the tangled relationships between knowledge, choice, causality, and identity that make time travel such a rich philosophical terrain. If you follow the warning, you create a new future, one in which your future self would have no reason to send the warning in the first place. Yet, if that warning were never sent, you would make the original choice, creating the very future that sends the warning. Already we find ourselves caught in a loop that challenges our linear understanding of cause and effect. Time travel, far from being merely a convenient plot device in science fiction, offers us a unique lens through which to examine our most fundamental assumptions about the nature of reality and our place within it. By considering what happens when we break the seemingly inviolable forward flow of time, we reveal the scaffolding of beliefs upon which we construct our understanding of existence. Rarely bring them into conscious awareness. As we journey together through increasingly complex implications of temporal manipulation, we'll discover that time travel isn't simply about physical journeys backward or forward through history. It's about unraveling the very fabric of causality, identity, and reality itself. Each level we explore will peel back another layer of our conventional understanding, revealing deeper questions that lie beneath. Consider how instinctively we assume that causes must precede their effects. That the past influences the future, but never the reverse. This assumption is so deeply embedded in our thinking that we rarely recognize it as an assumption at all. Yet time travel immediately challenges this foundation, forcing us to consider closed causal loops where effects might precede their causes or even cause themselves. What would it mean for our understanding of creativity, innovation, or free will if information or events could emerge from such loops, having no origina, constituting our history and future? Time travel scenarios quickly lead us to contemplate multiple timelines, branching realities, or parallel universes, possibilities that transform our understanding of choice, identity, and the nature of possibility itself. Is the you in another timeline still you? If a time traveler changes history, creating a new branch of reality, what happens to the original timeline they left behind? Even our conception of personal identity relies on assumptions about temporal continuity that time travel calls into question. Believe ourselves to be continuous beings, connected to our past and future selves through an unbroken chain of experience and memory. But what happens to this continuity when we introduce the possibility of meeting our past or future selves? Or when we consider how knowledge of our future might alter the very development that would lead to that future? By examining these implications in increasing levels of complexity, we might glimpse aspects of existence. Rational mind finds them too disorienting to comfortably dwell upon. Yet, there is a strange serenity in surrendering to these temporal mysteries, in allowing our conventional understanding to dissolve temporarily into more expansive possibilities. This journey will be both intellectually stimulating and strangely calming, like watching storm clouds from a place of shelter, as we explore paradoxes that have puzzled philosophers and physicists alike. You may find your mind both engaged and soothed by the contemplation of questions that extend beyond the boundaries of everyday concern. There's a peculiar comfort in recognized limitation, in acknowledging the horizons of our understanding and gazing beyond them, without the pressure to fully comprehend what lies over the edge. The 10 levels we'll explore together form a progression from relatively straightforward temporal paradoxes to increasingly unsettling implications about the nature of reality itself. We'll begin with familiar scenarios like the coherence of reality itself. As we begin our journey through the increasingly unsettling implications of time travel, let's first consider what happens when we attempt the most straightforward interference with history, trying to prevent something that directly led to our own existence. Level 1, the vanishing ancestor. As you sink deeper into relaxation, let your mind begin to explore one of the most fundamental and widely recognized contradictions of time travel: the grandfather paradox. This paradox serves as an entry point into the complex terrain of temporal manipulation, illuminating profound questions about causality, the very relationship between cause and effect that forms the bedrock of our perception of reality. Imagine a scenario where you have access to a time machine. You decide to embark on a journey to the past, perhaps out of curiosity, or perhaps to change something you feel needs altering. You find yourself standing in a moment long before your birth, witnessing a younger version met your grandmother. As you contemplate your choices, you realize that you have the power to intervene in a significant way. What if you were to prevent your grandfather from meeting your grandmother? Or even more drastically, what if you were to cause your grandfather's death before he has children? As you consider this action, a chilling realization dawns upon you. If you successfully prevent your grandfather from having children, you would cease to exist. If you were never born, that would mean you could not have traveled back in time in the first place to interfere with his life. If you never traveled back, then your grandfather would have lived and he would have had children, including your parent, and ultimately you would be born. Herein lies the paradox. Your action leads to your non-existence, which in turn eliminates the possibility of your action. This scenario creates an impossible logical loop, a contradiction that challenges our basic understanding of time and causality. The grandfather paradox, foundational thought experiment in discussions about time travel, revealing the intricate and often baffling relationship between actions and outcomes. It forces us to confront the limits of our understanding of cause and effect, highlighting how our intuitive grasp of these concepts can quickly unravel when we introduce the complexities of time travel. In examining this paradox, we must first consider the implications it has on our understanding of reality itself. The grandfather paradox suggests that our conventional, linear conception of time, where cause precedes effect in a straightforward manner, may not hold up under the scrutiny of time travel. Time, as we usually experience it, flows in a single direction, from past to present to future. We assume that events unfold chronologically, with our choices influencing the future based on a clear cause and effect relationship. However, the paradox introduces the unsettling idea that this linearity can be disrupted, leading to scenarios where effects fabric of our understanding of existence. If we consider the existence of multiple timelines or the possibility of self-correcting universes, we are forced to rethink what we know about reality. Some theorists propose that any attempt to alter the past might result in the creation of an alternate timeline where the original course of events continues unchanged. In this view, your action, preventing your grandfather from meeting your grandmother, would lead to a new reality where you never existed, while the original timeline where you were born remains intact. This solution offers a way to escape the logical contradiction posed by the paradox, but introduces its own complexities and questions about the nature of reality. Another proposed resolution involves the idea that the universe possesses mechanisms to self-correct, preventing paradoxes from occurring altogether. According to this view, if you were to attempt to alter a significant event in the past, the universe would somehow ensure that the or points in time immune to change, which raises profound questions about determinism and free will. If some events cannot be altered, what does that mean for our understanding of choice and agency? Additionally, there is the possibility that any attempt to interfere with the past would inevitably fail due to cosmic coincidence. This idea posits that no matter your intentions, circumstances would conspire to ensure that your grandfather still meets your grandmother, perhaps through a series of unforeseen events that prevent your intervention. Such a resolution highlights the seemingly chaotic nature of time and reality, suggesting that while we may perceive ourselves as agents of change, we are ultimately bound by the intricate web of causality that governs existence. To reflect on these resolutions, we must consider how they challenge our fundamental assumptions about how reality operates. Our intuitive belief in a linear, straightforward progression of cause and effect is deeply ingrained. The grandfat than we ever imagined. In doing so, we must grapple with the nature of identity, existence, and the essence of causality itself. As you continue to relax, let the weight of these ideas settle gently in your mind. The grandfather paradox serves as a reminder that our actions, choices, and intentions are often intertwined with the fabric of time in ways that defy conventional understanding. It reveals the limitations of our reasoning when faced with the complexities of time travel and the philosophical questions it raises about the nature of reality. While the grandfather paradox, let us now delve into another deeply intriguing aspect of time travel causal loops. This concept presents a scenario where an event can cause itself through a closed loop of causation, creating a circular relationship that defies our conventional understanding of time and sequence. In this realm, the linear progression we take for granted begins to dissolve, revealing the complexities and contradictions inherent in the very fabric of reality. To illustrate the essence of a causal loop, let us consider a classic example, often cited in discussions of time travel. Imagine a scientist who receives plans for a time machine from her future self. She studies the plans, builds the machine, and eventually travels back in time to deliver those same plans to her past self. In this scenario, the plans exist in a continuous loop. She never actually creates the plans. They simply exist because they were sent back in time to her. This creates a paradox where the origin of the plans becomes obscure. Appears to be no initial creator or source. This paradox raises profound questions about the nature of causation and identity. If something exists solely because it has been sent back in time, does it have any true origin? When we follow the chain of causation backward, we find ourselves in a perplexing situation where the usual rules of logic and cause and effect seem to break down. The implication here is that our understanding of reality, as grounded in linear causation, may be insufficient to fully grasp the intricacies of time travel. Causal loops also challenge our intuitive experiences of time. We tend to think of time as a linear progression, where events unfold in a specific order, one leading to the next. The idea that an event could loop back to cause itself undermines this understanding, suggesting that time may not be a straightforward path, but rather a more complex structure where the past, present, and future are intricately interconnected in ways we struggle to comprehend. As your mind begins to wander through these notions, consider the implications for personal identity. If a future version of yourself sends a message back to your past self, what does this mean for the identity of both selves? Are they the same person, or have they become distinct entities through the act of time travel? This question reveals the fluidity of identity when intertwined with causal loops. If you are shaped by your past experiences, but those experiences can be altered or influenced by your future self, what does it mean to be you? This paradox invites us to reflect on the nature of choice and free will. If your future self can influence your past actions, to what extent can you claim agency over your decisions? Are your choices genuinely yours, or are they predetermined by actions that have already occurred in a temporal loop? This realization can create a sense of disorientation, as conventional notions of autonomy and control grappled with the implications of causal loops. The concept raises questions about fate versus free will, challenging the notion that we are the authors of our destinies. If our lives can be shaped by events that have already occurred, how do we navigate our moral responsibilities? The paradox suggests that the relationship between choice and consequence is far more intricate than we typically recognize. In literature and popular culture, causal loops frequently serve as compelling narrative devices that explore these themes. Films like 12 Monkeys and Predestination delve into the complexities of time travel and the implications of actions that ultimately lead to a predetermined outcome. These stories invite viewers to ponder the nature of free will, identity, and causality, often leaving them with more questions than answers. As you continue to relax, allow your thoughts to dance through these concepts of causal loops and their implications for understanding reality. This exploration challenges us to what we perceive as possible begin to expand, revealing a tapestry of interconnected experiences that stretch far beyond conventional understanding. Now, as we contemplate the implications of these causal loops, we must also consider the consequences of time travel on a larger scale. What happens when multiple time travelers begin altering history for their own purposes? This leads us to our next layer of time travel's darkest implications, the chaotic realm of temporal warfare, where competing factions manipulate timelines in a battle for control over reality itself. Temporal warfare. As the complexities of causal loops swirl in your mind, we turn our attention to a darker, more chaotic aspect of time travel: the concept of temporal warfare. Imagine a reality where time travel is not just a scientific curiosity, but a strategic tool employed by powerful factions vying for control over history itself. In this scenario, the very fabric of time becomes a battlefield with competing interests manipulating where time travelers operate not as solitary figures, but as members of organized groups, each with their own motivations and objectives. These factions might be motivated by political power, corporate interests, or ideological beliefs. They could be governments seeking to alter the course of history, corporations aiming to reshape markets and societies, or even rogue individuals trying to rewrite their own pasts. The implications of such manipulation are profound, as the past becomes malleable, subject to the whims of those with the means to change it. In this landscape, time travelers become like soldiers on a battlefield, launching incursions into history to alter key events, eliminate adversaries, or fortify their own positions. Imagine a group of time travelers who, seeking to prevent a catastrophic future, decide to go back and eliminate a particular political leader whose actions they believe will lead to disaster. As they carry out their mission, they inadvertently set off a chain reaction, causing. Scenario illustrates the inherent unpredictability of time travel. The actions of one group might provoke counteractions from another, leading to a chaotic back and forth, where history is continuously rewritten, with each alteration creating new timelines and divergent realities. The resulting instability could lead to a reality where no timeline is ever truly secure, where events unfold in unpredictable ways, and where the very notion of a shared historical narrative becomes increasingly fragmented. The concept of temporal warfare raises profound questions about the nature of history itself. If individuals or groups can manipulate the past, what does that mean for our understanding of truth and accountability? Historical narratives become contested grounds, with competing factions arguing over which version of events is real. The line between truth and fiction blurs, and the past becomes a battleground, where the winners write the history. This manipulation of time also creates ethical dilemmas. So knowing that their actions may have unforeseen consequences. Conversely, if their actions lead to catastrophic outcomes, who bears responsibility? The complexities of moral accountability multiply when navigating a landscape where actions can ripple through time, creating effects that were never intended. The implications of temporal warfare extend to our understanding of free will and autonomy. When history can be rewritten by those who wield time travel as a tool, how do we reconcile this with individual agency? If your future self could alter a key moment in your past, are you truly the author of your own life? Or are you merely a pawn in a larger game played by individuals with access to the mechanics of time? These questions challenge our fundamental assumptions about identity and moral responsibility, inviting us to reconsider what it means to be a conscious agent in a world where time is not a fixed continuum, but a malleable fabric. In popular culture, the concept of temporal warfare has been. Films like Time Cop and Looper depict time travel as a weapon in the hands of powerful entities, leading to conflicts that reshape reality itself. These narratives often serve as cautionary tales, warning of the dangers inherent in manipulating time for personal or political gain. They remind us that with great power comes great responsibility, and that our choices, especially those that can alter the past, carry consequences that extend far beyond our immediate understanding. As your thoughts continue to drift through these unsettling possibilities, take a deep moment to reflect on how the concept of temporal warfare connects to our current experiences in a rapidly changing world. In an age of information manipulation, political propaganda, and the rewriting of narratives, we face challenges that echo the dilemmas of time travel. Just as time travelers might rewrite history, so too do we see powerful narratives constructed in the present, to shape perceptions of the past and influence the future. Now, as you layer of time travel's darkest implications, one that questions whether there are any limits to what we can change, and whether the very act of time travel might create a reality where chaos reigns and causality itself begins to unravel. Level 2. The Endless Circle. As we continue our journey through the labyrinthine complexities of time travel, we now encounter one of the most mind-bending phenomena in the realm of temporal manipulation: causal loops. This concept challenges our straightforward understanding of cause and effect, twisting the very nature of time itself into a perplexing cycle where events can cause themselves. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast, circular path where every step you take leads back to the beginning, creating an endless circle of causation with no true origin or conclusion. This paradox not only invites us to ponder the mechanics of time travel, but also forces us to confront the fundamental structure of reality. Causal loops represent a fascinating intersection between to explore the implications of events that seem to exist without clear origins, creating a reality where the past, present, and future intertwine in ways that defy our conventional understanding. To fully grasp the significance of causal loops, we must first delve into their definition and explore some classic examples that illustrate their peculiar nature. Imagine a scientist, a brilliant physicist, who is deeply engrossed in her research on time travel. After years of experimentation, she finally receives a set of plans for a time machine from her future self. These plans outline the precise specifications and mechanisms necessary to construct the device. Energized by this discovery, she follows the instructions meticulously, builds the time machine, and eventually travels back in time to deliver the plans to her past self. Now let us pause to examine the implications of this scenario. The plans exist because they were sent back in time, but they also seem to arise from the actions of the future self. Scientists built the machine according to those plans. Thus, the plans create a logical loop where the origin of the information appears to vanish into a cycle of self-causation. If we trace the source of the plans, we find ourselves in a paradox where the plans have no true creator, no initial point that can be identified as the origin of this information. They exist because they exist, perpetuating a cycle that challenges our understanding of creation and causality. Another compelling example of a causal loop can be found in the narrative of a novelist. Imagine a writer who, after years of struggling to produce a best-selling novel, comes across a previously published book that is strikingly similar to his own. Unbeknownst to him, this book was actually written by a future version of himself who had traveled back in time to steal ideas from his past self. The writer, inspired by this encounter, decides to plagiarize the book, presenting it as his own work. Here again, we see a loop. The novel exists because it was plagiarized from a future self, which itself was plagiarized from a past self. The cycle generates a narrative where originality becomes a moot point. Everything exists because it has been passed backward through time, creating an endless chain of influence without a clear origin. These scenarios illuminate the intricate nature of causal loops and the paradoxes they generate. They force us to confront the unsettling idea that some things may exist in a universe without a defined beginning. This notion undermines our deep-seated belief that everything must have an origin, an initial cause that sets events in motion. If we accept that causal loops can occur, we must reconsider how we understand the arrow of time itself. In classical physics, time is typically understood to flow in a linear direction, from past to present to future. This model of time logically implies a sequence of events where causes precede their effects. Yet, causal loops challenge this linearity in such a way that causes and effects become indistinguishable. If an event can exist because it was caused by itself, does time still progress in a straightforward manner? Or does it fold back upon itself, creating a complex interplay of moments that defy our understanding? The philosophical implications of causal loops extend into our understanding of creativity and originality. If ideas can be borrowed from one's future self, what does this mean for the concept of intellectual property? The very nature of creativity may be called into question if we accept that knowledge can travel backward through time, existing in a loop where each instance of an idea is merely a reiteration of something that has already been established. This perspective resonates with contemporary discussions about the nature of intellectual ownership in an age of rapid technological advancement and information sharing. In a world where ideas circulate freely and can be influenced by past versions of ourselves, the distinct questions about accountability and moral responsibility for actions that perpetuate such loops, as well as the value we assign to creativity itself. Moreover, if we consider the universe itself, could it exist within some form of temporal loop? The scientific community has long grappled with questions of the universe's origins and structure. The Big Bang Theory proposes that our universe began from an extremely hot, dense state, expanding outward in a manner that seems to indicate a singular origin. Yet the existence of causal loops suggests that the universe might not have a definitive beginning at all. Instead, it could be engaged in a cycle of creation and recreation, where the events of the cosmos are intertwined in a manner that defies our understanding of linear time. As you continue to relax, allowing your thoughts to meander through these complex ideas, consider how the implications of causal loops challenge our understanding of identity and agency. If our actions are part of a self-causing responsibility, are we truly the authors of our choices, or are our paths preordained by the very structure of time itself? These questions create a profound sense of existential uncertainty as the foundations of our self-conception begin to dissolve in the face of such paradoxes. The incorporation of causal loops into our understanding of time travel presents a significant challenge to our notions of free will. If our choices can lead to outcomes that have already been predetermined by our past actions, do we retain any genuine agency? Or are we merely participants in a predetermined narrative, acting out roles scripted by the very loops we create? This existential dilemma is reminiscent of philosophical discussions surrounding determinism, the view that all events, including human actions, are determined by preceding causes. In this perspective, free will is an illusion, and our sense of agency is merely a byproduct of complex causal chains. The introduction of causal loops complicates this picture but also by our future actions in ways we cannot fully comprehend. As you reflect on these ideas, consider how they intersect with our moral frameworks. If our choices are entangled in causal loops, how do we assess moral responsibility? Should we judge individuals based on the outcomes of their actions, knowing that those outcomes may be influenced by events that lie outside their control? Or should we recognize the limitations of our judgments, acknowledging that the complexities of time and causality create a landscape where moral assessments become inherently problematic? The exploration of causal loops also invites us to rethink our understanding of time itself. If time is not a linear progression, but a complex web of interrelated events, what does this mean for our perception of reality? The traditional view of time as a straight line with clear beginnings and endings becomes increasingly difficult to maintain in the face of these paradoxes. Instead, we might begin to see time as a rich, multi-sense future coexist in a fluid and dynamic relationship. As your consciousness continues to drift toward a place of relaxation, allow yourself to ponder the mysteries that arise from the concept of causal loops. The implications are profound, challenging our assumptions about causality and existence, identity and agency. The universe, with all its complexities, may not adhere to the neat boundaries we impose upon it. Instead, it invites us to engage with its intricacies, to explore the unknown, and to embrace the uncertainty that comes with confronting such enigmas. In that spirit, let us now transition to the next layer of time travel's darkest implications, one that examines the cascading effects of small, seemingly inconsequential changes in the past, a phenomenon that chaos theorists call the butterfly effect. Level 3, the butterfly's wings. As we delve into the third layer of time travel's darker implications, allow your mind to embrace the unsettling yet fascinating principle known as the butterfly effect. Can have disproportionately large consequences, particularly when viewed across the vast stretches of time. The idea is striking. A butterfly flapping its wings in one part of the world could, through a complex chain of events, lead to a hurricane forming in another part of the world, far removed from its original action. This seemingly trivial action highlights the interconnectedness of systems, revealing how small changes can cascade into monumental shifts, especially when it comes to the delicate fabric of time itself. Now consider how this principle applies to the realm of time travel. When we engage in the hypothetical act of traveling back in time, even the slightest alteration, something as innocuous as stepping on a prehistoric insect, could set off a chain reaction of events that alters the course of history in ways we cannot predict. Imagine a time traveler visiting the age of dinosaurs, carefully navigating the lush primordial landscape. If they were to step inadvertently on a small insect, this single action could have profound effects, rippling through evolutionary pathways and altering the course of life on Earth. The butterfly effect illustrates the inherent unpredictability of time travel. When you intervene in the past, you are not simply changing one event. You are potentially reshaping the entire timeline. This unpredictability makes the act of time travel fraught with moral and existential dilemmas. The traveler can never fully predict or understand the consequences of their actions. Each small choice may lead to unforeseen disasters or remarkable advancements, creating an ethical burden that weighs heavily on the mind. To further understand the implications of the butterfly effect, we must consider its historical roots. The term was popularized by meteorologist Edward Lorenz in the 1960s, who discovered that small changes in initial conditions of weather models could lead to vastly different outcomes. This insight transformed how we understand complex systems, revealing that T not only applied to meteorology, but also resonated across fields like economics, biology, and sociology, where tiny factors can lead to significant shifts in outcomes. When applied to time travel, the butterfly effect raises the question of moral responsibility. If a time traveler can inadvertently cause catastrophic consequences through seemingly minor actions, do they bear the moral weight of those consequences? This question leads us to ponder whether time travel should be approached with extreme caution or perhaps even avoided altogether. Should we adhere to a principle of non-interference, recognizing that even the most well-intentioned actions could lead to disastrous results? Moreover, the implications of the butterfly effect extend into our everyday lives, inviting us to consider the weight of our own choices. Though we may not have the ability to travel through time, we still make decisions daily that can have far-reaching consequences. Each action, no matter how small, has the potential to create a paradox of its own. Are we to live in constant fear of making choices, paralyzed by the enormity of potential consequences? Or do we embrace the uncertainty of life, recognizing that we cannot control every outcome, but can strive to act with intention and awareness? The interplay of chance and choice invites a deeper reflection on the nature of free will itself. If our actions can lead to unpredictable outcomes, does this suggest that our sense of agency is an illusion? Are we merely participants in a chaotic system where our choices are but small flutters in a vast and unpredictable cosmos? Alternatively, could it be that the unpredictability of our actions enhances our freedom, allowing us to engage with life in a more dynamic and fluid way? As you explore these questions, you might notice how they echo the inherent uncertainties of existence. The butterfly effect serves as a reminder that life is a web of interconnected experiences, where our paths intertwine with those of countless others. Decision we make sends ripples through this web, shaping not only our own lives, but also the lives of those around us. This interconnectedness invites a sense of responsibility, an awareness that our choices matter, even if we cannot foresee every consequence. In contemplating the moral implications of time travel and the butterfly effect, we are led to consider the balance between action and inaction. If every action carries the potential for unintended consequences, does that mean we should refrain from acting at all? This dilemma reflects a broader philosophical tension that has been explored throughout history, from the teachings of ancient philosophers to contemporary debates about responsibility and ethics. As you continue to relax, let your mind wander through these layers of complexity, embracing the uncertainty and the questions they raise. The butterfly effect invites a deeper understanding of the delicate balance between choice and consequence, urging us to navigate the complexities of life. So let us explore another profound aspect of time travel: the universe's potential defense mechanisms against temporal interference. What if changes to the past don't alter our original timeline, but instead create entirely new branches of reality? This leads us into the disorienting realm of multiple timelines, where every choice creates a new path through the cosmos. Level 4. The branching paths. As we continue our exploration of time travel's darkest implications, let us now delve into the concept of multiple timelines and parallel universes, a theory that offers a potential resolution to some of the paradoxes we've encountered. This theory suggests that whenever a time traveler attempts to change the past, they don't simply alter their original timeline. Instead, they create a new branch of reality. This branching nature of time travel raises profound questions about existence, identity, and the very fabric of reality itself. Picture a vast tree, its trunk thick and sturdy, representing the initial timeline, T. Travelers interact with the past. They create branches that extend outward, each representing a different potential outcome based on their actions. The original trunk remains intact, while new branches sprout in myriad directions, forming a complex web of alternate realities. Each decision creates a new path leading to different versions of events, lives, and realities. This branching paths concept aligns closely with the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, which posits that every quantum event creates a branching of realities. In this view, every choice, every action, and every measurement spawns parallel universes where different outcomes exist simultaneously. When we apply this idea to time travel, it suggests that rather than erasing the timeline we originate from, our actions lead us to a new branch, a new universe that diverges from the original. To clarify this, let us explore a classic time travel scenario. Imagine a time traveler, let's call her Alice, who journeys back to a pivotal moment of her life. As she arrives at this moment, she decides to intervene, altering the choice she made years ago. In doing so, Alice creates a new branch of reality where the consequences of her actions unfold differently. However, the original timeline where Alice made the initial decision still exists, continuing its course without her presence. This new branch creates a fascinating, if unsettling, reality for Alice. She can no longer return to the original timeline. Her journey has irrevocably altered her existence. The Alice who made the previous choice still exists in the original timeline, leading a life shaped by that decision. But the Alice who has traveled back in time now exists in a new reality, with potentially different relationships, experiences, and outcomes. This concept raises profound questions about identity. Is the Alice in the new branch still the same person as the original Alice? On one hand, she possesses the same memories, experiences, and personality traits. However, her choices have led a divergence that raises questions about the nature of individuality and continuity. If one can diverge into an alternate reality, how do we define the self? Is identity merely a product of memories and experiences, or is it something more profound that resists fragmentation across multiple realities? The implications extend further into existential territory. If every decision can lead to the creation of multiple branches, does this mean that every person might have infinite versions of themselves existing across an expansive multiverse? Each version of a person represents a different set of choices and circumstances, each living out a unique life story. This concept can be both liberating and unsettling. On one hand, it suggests that every possibility exists somewhere. On the other hand, it raises questions about the significance of our choices. If there are countless versions of ourselves making different decisions, Does any single choice carry the weight we typically ascribe to it? Furthermore, this valid. Does it matter if a time traveler chooses one path over another? If Alice saves someone in her new timeline, is she morally responsible for the consequences that arise from the path she left behind? This problem complicates our understanding of accountability and moral responsibility. We might feel compelled to act in ways that promote good in one branch, while potentially neglecting the consequences of our actions in another. The many worlds interpretation, while offering a fascinating solution to the paradoxes of time travel, also challenges our conventional understanding of causality and reality. Our universe, as we perceive it, seems singular and coherent. Yet, if every decision spawns a new universe, the very fabric of reality becomes infinitely complex, composed of countless threads woven together in a tapestry of existence. This complexity suggests that our understanding of the universe is limited, and that the nature of reality may extend far beyond our current comprehension. As you allow branching universe, if every choice leads to new timelines, what does that say about fate? Are we bound by destiny in one timeline while simultaneously enjoying the freedom of choice in another? This duality invites a deeper exploration of free will. The idea that we can influence outcomes through our decisions remains intact. Yet the existence of parallel realities complicates the notion that our actions define a single linear path. Moreover, as we think about the implications of these branching paths, we must also grapple with the potential implications for our understanding of time itself. If time is not a singular flow, but rather a complex web of interconnected possibilities, what does this mean for our experience of time? The past, present, and future may not exist in isolation, but rather as part of an intricate multidimensional tapestry that we can only begin to comprehend. This perspective opens up a realm of existential questions regarding how we live our lives in the present. If every choice of reality, how do we navigate our lives knowing that every decision we make influences not just our lives, but countless alternate versions of ourselves? This realization can be both freeing and paralyzing. It emphasizes the significance of our choices, while also prompting us to recognize the inherent uncertainty in every decision we make. In this light, the concept of multiple timelines can serve as a reminder of the importance of living authentically. The knowledge that our choices create different branches encourages us to act in ways that are true to our values and convictions, even while acknowledging the complexity and unpredictability of the outcomes. Rather than becoming overwhelmed by the multitude of potential paths, we can find empowerment in the fact that we possess the agency to choose and influence our realities. Now, as we contemplate the bewildering multiplication of realities, we encounter an even more unsettling possibility: that attempts to change the past might actually be doom. The events the time traveler sought to prevent. This leads us into the next layer of time travel's implications, where we must confront the chaotic nature of temporal manipulation and its profound effects on our understanding of causality. Level 5, the inevitable fulfillment. As we continue to explore the intricate and often perplexing implications of time travel, we find ourselves confronting one of the more unsettling aspects of temporal manipulation: the predestination paradox. This paradox suggests that attempts to change the past can lead to the very outcomes one is trying to prevent, creating a scenario where free will seems to evaporate and time travel merely fulfills what was always destined to happen. Imagine a time traveler who believes they have the power to alter history. They set their sights on a notorious dictator, convinced that by traveling back in time and eliminating this individual, they can save countless lives and prevent tyranny from spreading. With determination, they activate history. As they stealthily approach their target, the time traveler is filled with righteous resolve, convinced that they will be a hero. But fate has a way of twisting intentions. In the chaotic moments leading up to their attempt, their actions inadvertently set off a series of events that shape the dictator's worldview, leading to the very rise of the oppressive regime the traveler sought to prevent. In this scenario, the time traveler's well-meaning intervention becomes a part of the tapestry of history rather than an alteration. The act of traveling back to change the past does not create a new future. It instead becomes a necessary part of the past that was always meant to unfold. The paradox reveals a profound tension. If the time traveler's actions were destined to occur, does that mean free will is merely an illusion? Are we all trapped in a predetermined narrative where our attempts to effect change are not only futile, but are inevitably woven into the fabric of what already exists? This predestination paradox raises fundamental questions about causality and the nature of time itself. If every action taken by a time traveler is already accounted for in the timeline, we must confront the implications for our understanding of choice and moral responsibility. The idea that our actions could be predetermined challenges the very essence of agency. We like to think of our decisions as meaningful and impactful. Yet, if those decisions are merely fulfilling a preordained script, what does that say about our autonomy? To grasp this concept more fully, let's delve into some classic examples of predestination paradoxes that illustrate these ideas. One well-known scenario involves a time traveler who goes back to prevent a catastrophic event, such as a fire that destroys a significant building. The traveler meticulously plans their actions, determined to ensure that the fire never occurs. However, in their efforts to prevent the disaster, they inadvertently introduce the catalyst for the event they sought to avoid. This scenario creates a single consistent timeline where time travel does not alter history, but rather becomes an integral part of how history always unfolded. The traveler's actions, instead of preventing disaster, become woven into the events leading up to it. The implications here are profound. Our understanding of time as a linear progression of cause and effect is fundamentally challenged. In this model, the past does not simply remain fixed. It must account for the time traveler's influence, which has always been part of the causal chain. Consider how this paradox leads us to a deeper understanding of the nature of free will and determinism. If time travelers' attempts to change the past always lead to the very events they sought to prevent, does this suggest a universe where everything is predetermined? The implications of such a belief can be unsettling. If our actions are merely fulfilling a predetermined narrative, can we truly be held morally? Choices. The paradox invites us to reflect on the relationship between fate and free will, raising questions about the nature of our existence and the extent to which we have control over our destinies. This philosophical inquiry into predestination challenges our conventional perception of linear time and causality. We often view time as a straightforward progression, where events unfold in a cause and effect manner, with clear beginnings and endings. However, if time travel introduces the possibility of causal loops and predestination, then our operating problems would shut out. How or else we'd shape them and confuse them. Understanding of time as a linear construct becomes increasingly questionable. It invites us to rethink the very nature of time itself. Perhaps it is not a simple arrow moving from the past to the future, but a more complex tapestry where events are interconnected in ways we cannot fully comprehend. Furthermore, the predestination paradox raises critical moral questions about the implications of time travel for our sense of identity. If we exist within a of the past, following a script written before our birth, the loss of agency can be deeply unsettling, igniting existential fears about our place in the universe and the meaning of our lives. In popular culture, the predestination paradox has been explored through various narratives, each grappling with the implications of time travel and causality. Films like Predestination and 12 Monkeys depict characters entangled in temporal loops where their attempts to change the past lead to outcomes that are both expected and unexpected. These narratives challenge viewers to consider the complexities of time, identity, and moral responsibility, leaving them with lingering questions about the nature of free will and the consequences of our actions. As you allow these ideas to settle into your mind, consider how the predestination paradox intersects with your own experiences of choice and consequence. Do you ever feel as though your decisions are influenced by factors beyond your control? Have you encountered if fate had already determined your path? This recognition of the interplay between choice and destiny can evoke a mixture of empowerment and helplessness, reminding us of the complexities inherent in navigating the human experience. Now, as we contemplate the predestination paradox and its implications for our understanding of time, identity, and moral responsibility, we must also consider the chaotic nature of temporal manipulation. What happens when time travel creates knowledge or objects that have no original source, information that exists only because it was sent back in time to itself? This leads us to another layer of time travel's implications, where the very foundations of reality begin to unravel. Level 6. Knowledge from nowhere. As we delve into the sixth level of time travel's darkest implications, we encounter a paradox that is both subtle and profoundly disturbing, one that challenges our fundamental understanding of human creativity, innovation, and the very nature of knowledge itself. T becomes twisted into temporal loops that leave us questioning the origin of ideas and information. Imagine for a moment the satisfaction of solving a complex mathematical equation after months of dedicated work. The moment when insight crystallizes and understanding dawns. This experience represents one of humanity's most cherished capabilities, our ability to discover, create, and innovate. But what happens when time travel enters this equation? What if the knowledge we prize as the product of human ingenuity actually comes from nowhere, existing only everywhere, because it was sent back through time to itself? In the realm of information paradoxes, knowledge becomes untethered from its creators, floating in temporal loops with no discernible point of origin. Consider a brilliant physicist who has been struggling for years with an impossible equation, one that might revolutionize our understanding of the universe. Late one night, exhausted from fruitless calculations, she receives a visit from her future self, who, every detail, and over the next decade, incorporates it into her work. When she finally perfects time travel technology, she travels back to that fateful night and delivers the solution to her younger self, completing the loop. In this scenario, a profound question emerges. Where did the solution actually come from? The younger physicist didn't discover it through her own efforts. She received it from her future self. But the future self didn't discover it either. She merely passed along information she had received in her own past. The knowledge exists in a perfect, causal loop with no point of genuine innovation or discovery. It simply is, having always existed within this closed temporal circuit. This scenario isn't limited to scientific discoveries. Imagine an artist who visits a gallery and sees a painting that deeply moves him, a work of such profound beauty and originality that it changes his understanding of art itself. Upon looking at the signature, he is shocked to discover it's his own, dated 7. The future. He studies the painting intently, memorizing every brushstroke and color choice. Over the next few years, he creates this very painting, not through original inspiration, but by reproducing what he saw in the gallery. When the painting is complete, he submits it to the gallery, where his younger self will eventually see it, continuing the loop. Again, we must ask, where did the artistic creation truly originate? If the artist didn't conceive of it independently, but merely reproduced what he had already seen, and what he saw was his own future work, then the creative act becomes a paradox, a self-causing loop where inspiration has no genuine source. These examples illuminate the unsettling nature of information paradoxes. They create scenarios where knowledge, ideas, or creative works exist without ever having been truly created or discovered. Instead, they exist in closed causal loops, passed backward and forward through time, in an eternal circle that challenges our understanding of innovation. And, since the Enlightenment, we have celebrated human creativity and discovery as fundamental aspects of our intellectual heritage. We value original thinking, breakthrough insights, and the eureka moments that push knowledge forward. Our patent systems, academic institutions, and cultural narratives all reinforce the idea that knowledge progresses through genuine acts of creation and discovery. But information paradoxes suggest a disturbing alternative. What if some, or even all, of human knowledge exists not because it was discovered or created, but because it was passed backward through time? What if the greatest scientific theories, artistic masterpieces, or philosophical insights were never truly created, but merely exist in temporal loops with no beginning? This possibility raises questions about the nature of human creativity itself. If knowledge can exist in these paradoxical loops, does this diminish the value or significance of what we consider creative acts? Does it suggest fundamental limitations that information paradoxes might actually point toward a different understanding of what discovery and creation actually are? Perhaps genuine innovation isn't the generation of something entirely new, but rather the act of bringing into conscious awareness what already exists in some potential form. This view resonates with certain philosophical traditions, such as Plato's theory of anamnesis, which suggests that learning is a form of remembering what the soul already knows, or with Carl Jung's concept of the collective unconscious, reservoir of experiences accessible to all humans. In this light, information paradoxes might not diminish creativity, but rather reveal its true nature as an act of connecting with knowledge that exists beyond linear time, of bringing into manifestation what was always potentially present. The artist or scientist becomes not so much a creator as a conduit, a vessel through which timeless information flows into temporal expression. Yet this reframing, while intricate, with no point of origin, it challenges our intuitive understanding of causality, the idea that effects must have causes that precede them temporally. Information paradoxes suggest the possibility of effects that cause themselves, of knowledge that bootstraps itself into existence without ever having been truly created. This self-causing nature of information in temporal loops also raises questions about determinism and free will. If an artist creates a painting only because they saw their future self had already created it, was the act of creation truly a free choice, or was it predetermined by the necessity of maintaining the causal loop? The artist might feel they are making creative decisions, but in reality, they are merely fulfilling what has already been established, reproducing what they have already seen. Similarly, the scientist who receives an equation from her future self might believe she is working toward a discovery, but her path has already been determined by the information she received. Sense of agency and creative choice masks a reality in which certain outcomes are fixed by the requirements of temporal consistency. The implications extend beyond individual acts of creation to our broader understanding of human progress. We typically view intellectual and artistic development as a forward-moving process, with each generation building upon the achievements of those who came before. But information paradoxes suggest the possibility of knowledge that doesn't progress linearly, but exists in circular patterns that transcend conventional temporal sequences. This possibility becomes even more complex when we consider the potential scale of such paradoxes. Could major scientific breakthroughs, the theory of relativity, quantum mechanics, DNA's double helix structure, exist in temporal loops rather than having been genuinely discovered? Could artistic movements or philosophical systems emerge not through the linear development of human thought, but through complex webs of temporal influence? If knowledge can exist in these paradoxical loops, perhaps other aspects of our world, physical objects, social institutions, even consciousness itself, might similarly exist in patterns that transcend linear causality. As you continue to relax and contemplate these possibilities, consider how information paradoxes might relate to your own experiences of creativity and insight. Have you ever had a moment where an idea seemed to come from nowhere, emerging fully formed in your consciousness? Have you experienced creative breakthroughs that felt less like invention and more like discovery, as if you were connecting with something that already existed, rather than generating something entirely new? These experiences, common among artists, scientists, and thinkers throughout history, take on new significance when viewed through the lens of temporal paradoxes. They suggest that perhaps our conventional understanding of creativity as a purely forward-moving process might be incomplete, that the relationship be a sense of wonder rather than frustration. Perhaps the origin of knowledge, like the nature of consciousness or the ultimate structure of reality, represents a frontier where our conventional understanding reaches its limits, where we must be willing to embrace uncertainty and paradox rather than insisting on neat, linear explanations. While information paradoxes challenge our understanding of creativity, time travel poses an even more personal threat, one that strikes at the heart of our sense of agency and selfhood through the power of foreknowledge. As we transition to this next level of temporal disturbance, we move from abstract questions about the origin of ideas to more intimate concerns about how knowledge of the future might transform our experience of the present and our understanding of who we are. Level 7. The Stolen Future. As we continue our journey through the increasingly unsettling implications of time travel, we arrive at a disturbance that strikes at the core core of what it means. Contradictions we've explored, there exists a more subtle yet profoundly disturbing consequence of temporal manipulation: the temporal theft of identity and agency. This concept explores how knowledge of one's future, whether obtained through time travelers, prophecy, or direct glimpses of future events, can fundamentally undermine our free will, authentic choice, and the natural process of self-development that defines the human experience. Imagine receiving a sealed envelope from a visitor claiming to be from the future, perhaps your future self. Inside this envelope is a detailed description of your life's major events, the career you'll pursue, whom you'll marry, your children's names, your greatest achievements, and most painful failures, even the circumstances of your death. As you read these revelations, something profound and disturbing happens. The future that once existed as an open field of possibilities, a canvas for your choices and aspirations, suddenly solidifies into a predetermined path. The temporal violation, not the physical paradoxes of causality we've previously examined, but something that affects the very essence of your humanity. Your future has been stolen, not through physical interference, but through knowledge itself. The theft is subtle, yet absolute. Once you know what will happen, you can never again experience the authentic process of creating your life through genuine choice and discovery. This temporal theft of agency creates a psychological trap with no satisfying escape. Upon learning your predetermined future, you might instinctively resist, attempting to defy the prophecy by making different choices. If I'm destined to marry this person, you might think I'll avoid meeting them entirely. But this resistance itself might become the very mechanism that fulfills the prophecy. Perhaps in your determined efforts to avoid this person, you create circumstances that make your meeting inevitable, your defiance becoming the cause of what you sought to prevent. Alternatively, you might. This resignation, however, creates a different kind of existential crisis, a loss of the sense that your decisions matter, that you are actively authoring your own life story. The motivation that comes from genuine uncertainty about outcomes vanishes. Why strive? Why deliberate over choices? Why invest emotionally in possibilities if the ending is already written? This resignation hollows out the experience of living, transforming what should be an active creative process into a passive playing out of a script you had no hand in writing. What makes this form of temporal interference particularly insidious is how it short-circuits the natural process of identity formation. Under normal circumstances, human identity develops through a complex interplay of choices, experiences, and reflections. We become ourselves through the accumulation of decisions, some deliberate, some instinctive, all contributing to the unique narrative that constitutes a life. Each choice creates new possibilities while closing other. Process by inserting certainty where uncertainty is essential. The knowledge of future outcomes removes the authentic experience of choosing without knowing the consequences, that vulnerable open state where genuine agency resides. Instead of discovering who you are through the process of living, you're confronted with a finished portrait of yourself before the painting has even begun. The journey of becoming is replaced with the burden of fulfilling or resisting a predetermined identity. This disruption reveals something profound about human. This temporal structure creates the conditions for meaning-making. We learn from the past, act in the present, and project ourselves toward possible futures. But detailed foreknowledge collapses this structure, creating a situation where the future becomes as fixed as the past, leaving the present as merely a transition point between two determined states rather than a moment of genuine possibility. The philosophical implications of this temporal theft extend into profound questions about the nature of freedom itself. Philosophers have long debated whether free will is compatible with determinism, the idea that all events, including human choices, are determined by prior causes. Some argue that even in a deterministic universe, freedom consists in acting according to one's own desires and values without external constraint. But foreknowledge creates a unique challenge to this conception of freedom. When you know your future actions with certainty, even choices that feel internally motivated become decisions and removes the subjective experience of genuine choice. This phenomenon has been explored throughout human culture, from ancient Greek tragedies to contemporary science fiction. Oedipus, despite all efforts to avoid his prophesied fate of killing his father and marrying his mother, fulfills the prophecy precisely through his attempts to escape it. Modern films like Arrival explore how knowledge of future events transforms one's experience of the present, raising questions about whether choices remain meaningful when their outcomes are already known. These narratives resonate because they touch on a fundamental aspect of human experience, our complex relationship with the unknown future and the role of uncertainty in creating meaning. The psychological implications of foreknowledge are equally profound. Research in psychology suggests that human happiness and motivation are significantly influenced by uncertainty and the anticipation of future possibilities. We derive satisfaction, not just twists of stories they were invested in, show that such foreknowledge significantly diminishes enjoyment and emotional engagement. Extrapolated to life itself, this suggests that knowing too much about our personal futures might fundamentally alter our capacity for joy, engagement, and meaning. Consider also how foreknowledge might transform our relationships with others. Much of the richness of human connection comes from the mutual discovery of another person, the gradual revelation of their character, values, and inner world through shared experiences over time. But if you already know how relationships will unfold, which friendships will endure, which romances will flourish or fail, which betrayals or reconciliations lie ahead, this process of discovery is short-circuited. Others become characters in a predetermined narrative rather than autonomous beings with whom you create shared meaning through genuine interaction. This leads us to consider whether a life lived with complete foreknowledge would threaten our existence. But this temporal theft of agency threatens something perhaps more precious: the quality and authenticity of that existence. A life without genuine surprise, discovery, and the possibility of transformation might retain its physical form while losing its essential human character. Some philosophers have suggested that this insight reveals something important about the value of temporal finitude itself. Perhaps our limitation to a particular temporal perspective, able to remember the past and anticipate the future, but genuinely knowing only the present, is not a constraint to be transcended, but a condition that makes meaningful human experience possible. Our temporal boundedness creates the space for genuine choice, authentic becoming, and the creation of meaning through the transformation of open possibility into determined actuality. As you continue to relax and contemplate these ideas, consider your own relationship with uncertainty and possibility. Think of moments when not known in advance how certain chapters of your life would unfold. Would such knowledge have enhanced your experience, or would it have diminished the richness of living through uncertainty toward discovery? This reflection might lead to a counterintuitive appreciation for the limitations of our temporal perspective. Perhaps not knowing the future isn't a flaw in human experience, but a feature, a condition that creates the possibility for authentic agency, genuine surprise, and the continuous becoming that constitutes a fully human life. Greatest wisdom regarding time isn't the pursuit of perfect foreknowledge, but the capacity to remain open to an uncertain future while acting meaningfully in the present. As troubling as foreknowledge is for individual identity, when we introduce multiple time travelers, each attempting to reshape history according to their own aims, we face an even more chaotic scenario, one where causality itself begins to unravel in infinite temporal regression. As we to its potential to destabilize reality itself. Level 8, the infinite ripples. As we venture deeper into the unsettling implications of time travel, we encounter a phenomenon that threatens the very stability of reality itself: infinite regression. This concept takes us beyond individual paradoxes or isolated temporal anomalies into a realm where multiple instances of time travel create endless loops of interference, resulting in a history that never fully stabilizes into a coherent timeline. Like ripples on a pond that continuously generate new patterns as they intersect and overlap, these temporal disturbances propagate endlessly, creating a reality in constant flux. Imagine a world where time travel has become possible, not just for one individual, but for many. In Timeline A, what we might consider the original sequence of events, a scientist develops time travel technology and journeys to the past to prevent a global catastrophe. Her actions successfully avert the disaster, but inadvertently create different individuals rise to prominence, different conflicts emerge, and different technological paths are pursued. But the story doesn't end there. In Timeline B, another individual, or perhaps even a different version of our original scientist, develops time travel technology. Witnessing problems in their own timeline, problems that may not have existed in timeline A, but emerged as unintended consequences of the first temporal intervention. This second time traveler journeys to the past with their own agenda for improvement. Their actions create Timeline C with its own unique characteristics and challenges. This process continues in potentially infinite regression. Timeline C spawns time travelers who create Timeline D, which produces travelers who generate Timeline E, and so on, in an endless cascade of realities, each slightly or dramatically different from its predecessors. Each iteration of reality spawns new time travelers with new motivations based on the altered circumstances they experience. T. Competing interventions, each attempting to pull history in different directions. What emerges from this scenario is a history that never fully resolves, a reality in constant flux, as waves of temporal adjustment ripple forward and backward through time. The metaphor of ripples on a pond is particularly apt. Just as water cannot settle into stillness when continuously disturbed from multiple points, the fabric of time cannot stabilize into a single coherent narrative when subjected to constant interference from multiple temporal sources. This infinite regression creates a fundamentally unstable reality where the ground of history is constantly shifting beneath our feet. Consider what this would mean for those living within such a system. You might go to sleep one evening, having lived a particular life with specific memories, relationships, and identity, only to wake the next morning to a slightly altered reality, where certain events in your past have changed due to temporal interference. Perhaps, you pursued a different career path due to subtle changes in historical circumstances. Would you even be aware of these changes? Or would your memories adjust to match the altered timeline, leaving you with no recognition that reality had shifted? This question touches on profound philosophical issues regarding the nature of personal identity and consciousness. If your memories, experiences, and even personality might be retroactively altered by temporal interference, what remains stable about the you that persists through these changes? Is there a core selfhood that transcends particular historical circumstances, or are we entirely constituted by our specific histories and memories? The instability extends beyond personal identity to the very fabric of physical reality. Could a universe subject to constant temporal readjustment maintain coherent physical laws? The laws of nature, as we understand them, depend on consistent cause and effect relationships operating across time. But in a reality where imagine a universe where the gravitational constant changes slightly with each timeline adjustment, or where the strong nuclear force that binds atomic nuclei together fluctuates in strength due to temporal interference. Such instability in fundamental physical parameters would make the emergence and persistence of complex structures, from stars and planets to organic molecules and living organisms, highly improbable. A reality subject to infinite temporal regression might become too chaotic to support the delicate balance required for conscious beings to exist. Yet there's another possibility. Perhaps such endless temporal recursion might lead to a form of universal computation where reality cycles through all possible variations of history. In this view, the instability created by infinite regression isn't a descent into chaos, but rather an exploration of the full space of possible histories. The universe becomes a vast computational system, processing every potential configuration of events, EV. Every quantum event occurs in some branch of reality. Infinite temporal regression might represent a mechanism by which these branches interact and influence each other, creating a meta-stable system that explores the full landscape of possible histories. But such a system raises profound questions about meaning and purpose. If reality is constantly shifting through endless variations, never settling into a stable configuration, what significance can we attribute to any particular sequence of events? If every possible history eventually occurs, through this recursive process, does any specific path matter more than any other? These questions challenge our intuitive sense that some outcomes are better than others, that history has direction and purpose, rather than being an endless cycling through all possibilities. The concept of infinite regression also disrupts our understanding of moral responsibility. In a reality where any action might be undone or altered by future temporal interference, does moral responsibility become as unstable as reality itself? This creates a kind of moral vertigo, where the ground of ethical judgment seems to dissolve beneath our feet. Yet, perhaps the most unsettling implication of infinite regression is what it suggests about the nature of time itself. We typically conceive of time as a linear progression from past to future, with a clear direction and structure. But infinite temporal regression suggests a far more complex topology, a tangled web where past, present, and future continuously influence each other. In recursive loops, time becomes less like a river flowing in one direction and more like an ocean with currents moving in multiple directions simultaneously, creating complex patterns of interference and interaction. This complexity challenges our most basic intuitions about causality and temporal order. If the past can be continuously altered by interference from multiple futures, and these altered pasts generate new futures with their own time travel, both causes and effects in an intricate web of temporal influence that transcends linear sequencing. Consider how this might affect our understanding of historical events. In conventional thinking, historical occurrences have definite causes that precede them in time. But in a reality subject to infinite temporal regression, a significant event might be influenced by factors from both its past and its future, creating causal loops that have no clear beginning or end. History becomes not a fixed sequence to be discovered, but a dynamic process, continuously being rewritten by influences from multiple temporal directions. This perspective invites a radical rethinking of concepts like destiny and free will. Rather than seeing the future as either completely open, subject to free choice, or completely determined, fixed by prior causes, infinite regression suggests a more complex relationship where future possibilities can influence past events through temporal interference, creating a dynamic system where the concept of infinite regression might relate to certain experiences in your own life, moments of déjà vu, inexplicable intuitions about future events, or strange coincidences that seem to defy probability. While these experiences likely have conventional explanations, they offer a glimpse of what consciousness might encounter in a reality where time doesn't flow in a simple linear fashion, but curves back upon itself in complex patterns of influence. The chaos of individual temporal interference, unsettling as it may be, pales in comparison to what might occur when organized groups begin to strategically manipulate history. Imagine not just isolated time travelers creating ripples in the temporal pond, but coordinated efforts to reshape the past according to specific agendas. This leads us to consider the possibility of temporal warfare, a shadow conflict waged across time itself, invisible to those of us who experience time in linear fashion. Level 9. The War Beyond Time. As we continue our descent that transforms the very nature of conflict itself, the temporal Cold War. This concept takes us beyond individual time travelers or chaotic temporal interference into the realm of organized, strategic manipulation of history by competing factions. Imagine not merely isolated ripples in the timeline, but coordinated campaigns to reshape the past, present, and future according to specific agendas. A form of warfare, potentially more devastating than any conventional conflict, as the entirety of human history becomes a battlefield for competing interests. Unlike traditional warfare, which unfolds within time, temporal conflicts transcend chronological boundaries, creating a struggle that exists beyond time itself. The stakes of such conflicts extend beyond territory, resources, or political power to something far more fundamental: the very shape of reality as experienced by all beings throughout history. When time itself becomes weaponized, the nature of victory and defeat, power and resistance takes on entity. First, consider how it might operate. Organizations possessing time travel capability would likely engage not in obvious dramatic interventions, which could create unpredictable paradoxes or draw counter-interventions from opposing factions, but rather in subtle historical manipulation designed to nudge society toward their preferred outcomes. These manipulations would be calibrated to create maximum impact with minimal temporal disturbance, operating below the threshold that might trigger paradoxes or alert rival time travelers to their tactics. Such subtle interventions might include ensuring that key historical figures meet or don't meet at crucial moments, slightly altering the circumstances of important decisions to influence their outcomes, removing potential obstacles to desired historical developments, or placing specific individuals in positions of influence. A temporal operative might arrange for two scientists with complementary insights to encounter each other, accelerating a history to produce profound long-term effects aligned with the operative's agenda. What makes temporal warfare particularly insidious is that it would likely remain invisible to ordinary people experiencing time linearly. For those of us moving forward through time, moment by moment, history would appear to unfold naturally according to comprehensible causes and effects. We would have no way of knowing that the reality we experience, the technological developments, cultural movements, political systems, and even personal circumstances of our lives might be the product of continuous temporal engineering. The true causes of historical events would lie not in the past as we understand it, but in the actions of time travelers from various futures, each attempting to shape history according to their own vision. Consider how this invisible warfare might manifest across different domains of human activity. In the realm of technology, competing temporal factions might attempt to accelerate or delay specific products. Another might promote computational technologies leading to artificial intelligence. Neither group would need to introduce anachronistic knowledge directly. They could simply ensure that the right insights occur to the right people at the right moments, making technological development appear natural, while actually being guided by external influence. In politics and social development, temporal operatives might work to promote specific ideologies or systems of governance by subtly influencing key historical moments, revolution or stability, centralization or fragmentation, liberal or authoritarian tendencies. All could be nudged in preferred directions through minimal but strategically targeted interventions. A temporal faction might ensure that a charismatic leader survives an accident that would have killed them, or conversely, that a potentially destructive figure never rises to prominence. They might subtly influence the outcome of crucial elections, the drafting of significant legislation, or specific aesthetic movements, philosophical ideas, or religious developments that align with their visions of ideal social evolution. By ensuring that certain thinkers gain prominence while others remain obscure, by facilitating or preventing the preservation of specific cultural artifacts, time travelers could shape the intellectual and spiritual landscape of entire civilizations according to their agendas. The most disturbing aspect of this scenario is the possibility that we might already be living in a timeline shaped by such temporal manipulation that the history we know, the reality we experience, might be the product of countless adjustments and counter-adjustments by competing time travelers. The wars, revolutions, technological breakthroughs, cultural movements, and societal transformations that constitute our historical narrative might not be the result of purely natural human development, but rather the outcome of an invisible conflict waged across time by factions we cannot perceive. This, shaped without their knowledge or consent. The choices we believe we make freely, both individually and collectively, might be subtly influenced by factors we cannot perceive. Our apparent agency compromised by invisible hands, guiding historical development from beyond our temporal horizon. The ethical implications become even more complex when we consider the perspective of the temporal operatives themselves. From their viewpoint, they might be acting with benevolent intentions, preventing catastrophic futures, promoting outcomes they believe will maximize human flourishing, or protecting their own timelines from manipulation. Sustainability. One might promote individualistic societies with minimal governance, while another favors collectivist systems with strong central authority. Each would attempt to shape history according to their values, creating a meta-conflict about whose vision should prevail. This conflict would be fundamentally different from conventional ideological struggles, which unfold within a shared reality, where different perspectives compete openly. Temporal warfare would operate across different versions of reality itself, with each faction attempting to establish their preferred historical trajectory as the true timeline. The battleground would not be physical territory, but the very fabric of history, the causal relationships that determine which events occur and which possibilities remain unrealized. Would such manipulation eventually reach a stable equilibrium, or would it lead to increasingly desperate measures? As competing factions realized their changes were being countered by rivals, they might. A chaotic unraveling of causality that renders history incoherent and threatens the very existence of all timelines involved. Alternatively, the conflict might evolve toward a form of temporal détente, where competing factions establish implicit or explicit rules of engagement to prevent mutual destruction. They might agree to limit interventions to certain historical periods or types of events, establish buffer zones where no manipulation is permitted, or develop verification mechanisms to monitor compliance with temporal non-interference. Agreements. Such arrangements would create a complex diplomatic landscape extending across time rather than space, with alliances, treaties, and cold wars playing out beyond the perception of those experiencing time linearly. For those of us potentially living within such manipulated timelines, this scenario creates a profound epistemological challenge. If history itself might be continuously rewritten around us, how can we trust our understanding of reality? Our entire framework for establishing truth becomes questionable. Yet perhaps there is a strange comfort in this uncertainty. If our reality has been shaped by temporal warfare, the fact that we exist at all suggests a certain robustness to the causal fabric that supports our existence. Despite potentially countless interventions and counter-interventions throughout history, consciousness persists, societies function, and human experience continues. This might indicate that reality has a kind of self-stabilizing quality, that despite manipulation, certain patterns of existence tend to reassert themselves, maintaining a core coherence that transcends particular historical details. Moreover, the possibility of temporal warfare invites us to consider our own potential role in shaping history. Even if we cannot travel through time ourselves, our actions and choices contribute to the causal web that determines which futures become possible. By acting with awareness of long-term consequences, by promoting values, time frame, this perspective transforms our relationship with historical agency. Rather than seeing ourselves as merely subject to historical forces, whether natural developments or temporal manipulation, we might recognize our own participation in the ongoing creation of reality. Each choice we make, each value we embody, each action we take contributes to determining which potential futures will actualize. In this sense, we are all temporal agents, even without the technology to physically travel through time. As unsettling as the concept of temporal warfare may be, it assumes that reality can withstand the strain of continual historical revision. But perhaps there are limits to how much paradox the fabric of existence can bear before something far more fundamental begins to unravel. As we prepare to explore the final and most disturbing implication of time travel, we must consider whether the very structure of reality itself might have breaking points, thresholds, beyond which the coherence of our exploration into the darkest implications of time travel, we arrive at a concept that resonates with both awe and fear: the dissolution of reality itself. This final level of inquiry suggests that unrestricted time travel, if left unchecked, could ultimately lead to the breakdown of the very coherence of existence. It is a profound idea that challenges our assumptions about time, causality, and the nature of reality. What happens when the intricate web of cause and effect, which underpins our understanding of the universe, begins to unravel? What occurs when the fabric of reality itself becomes frayed, leading to a chaotic cosmos where the past, present, and future no longer maintain their distinctions? To grasp the gravity of this concept, we must first consider the implications of extensive temporal manipulation. Time travel, while a fascinating thought experiment, introduces complexities that challenge our linear understanding of causality. Each time traveler who ventures into the past has the time leading to unforeseen consequences. Yet, as we have explored in previous segments, these changes might not merely result in new branching timelines or altered futures. They could create paradoxes so severe and contradictions so fundamental that conventional resolutions, such as the creation of alternate timelines or self-correcting universes, fail to hold. Imagine a time traveler who repeatedly intervenes in key historical events, believing they are making the world a better place. Each action they take seems justified in the moment, and yet each alteration introduces new variables and complications that further destabilize the timeline. Over time, these actions accumulate, leading to a reality that grows increasingly chaotic and disconnected. In this scenario, the fabric of causality itself begins to fray, and the once coherent narrative of history starts to dissolve into a chaotic amalgamation of events that no longer follow a logical sequence. As you continue to relax, feeling the weight of this, when the foundational principles of cause and effect break down, we enter a realm where events occur without discernible causes, where the connections that make our experiences coherent begin to dissolve. Imagine a universe where memories cannot reliably connect to past events, where the identity of individuals cannot maintain consistency across time. This scenario raises profound questions about the nature of consciousness itself. If we cannot trust the continuity of our experiences, what does it mean to exist as a conscious being? The collapse of coherent causality suggests that the very essence of identity may become unstable. If our memories and experiences are no longer grounded in reliable connections to the past, we may struggle to maintain a coherent sense of self. Our identities, which rely on human and the foundations of our moral responsibilities. Consider the idea that if reality itself is unraveling, then the laws of physics that govern our experiences may also be in flux. In such a universe, the principles of relativity, quantum mechanics, and causality might no longer apply as we understand them. This presents a profound challenge to our scientific understanding of the cosmos. If time travel introduces such instability into the fabric of reality, are there inherent limits to how much temporal manipulation can occur without leading to this unraveling? Might there be fundamental laws or constraints that govern time travel, preventing excessive interference that could threaten the coherence of existence? This inquiry leads us to reflect on the potential absence of time travelers from our present reality. If time travel were possible, why have we not encountered any visitors from the future? This absence may suggest that time travel is either impossible or that civilizations capable of strict limitations to ensure the stability of reality. The notion that time travelers might exist, yet choose to remain hidden, evokes a sense of mystery and wonder. It raises existential questions about our understanding of time, destiny, and the paths we tread through life. As you continue to explore these profound implications, consider how the unraveling of reality challenges our perception of agency. If our choices can lead to outcomes that disrupt the very continuity of existence, what does this mean for our moral responsibilities? Are we free to make decisions, or are we bound by a deterministic framework where our actions are predetermined by the very structure of time? The idea that the universe can resist change through its fundamental principles raises another question. If we cannot alter certain historical events, are there fixed points in time, events that must occur regardless of attempts to change them? This concept suggests the possibility of fixed points in time, crucial events that without unraveling the fabric of reality itself. Such points would function as anchors, preserving coherence amid the chaos of temporal manipulation. As you continue to relax, take a moment to reflect on how this unraveling of reality connects to your own experiences of choice and consequence. In your life, you may have encountered moments where your decisions seemed to lead to unexpected outcomes, or where the path forward was obscured by complexity and uncertainty. These reflections resonate with the chaos introduced by time travel, where the interconnectedness of actions and events creates a tapestry of existence that defies simple understanding. The complexities of moral responsibility in this context become particularly pronounced. If we cannot fully predict the outcomes of our actions, how can we hold ourselves accountable for the choices we make? The tension between intention and consequence becomes a central theme in these discussions. Just as a time traveler may inadvertently cause catastrophe, our decisions in everyday life. This realization invites us to cultivate a greater sense of humility in our moral judgments. Understanding that every action we take may have unforeseen ramifications can foster a deeper sense of compassion for ourselves and others. Recognizing the interconnectedness of our choices and the complexity of the world encourages us to approach moral dilemmas with a sense of openness and curiosity rather than rigid certainty. As we contemplate the unraveling of reality and the potential chaos introduced by time travel, consider how this knowledge might inform your approach to ethical living. How might it encourage you to act with greater awareness of the complexity of human experience? How might it invite you to navigate moral questions with humility and compassion? The exploration of time travel's implications leads us to a deeper understanding of our relationship with existence itself. The very fabric of reality is woven from countless threads of cause and effect.